Hey guys, tonight we are going to peel back the layers of the world you know to stand on the shore of an ocean that no longer exists. Imagine you are standing on a stretch of coast, but not one you'd recognize from any map today. The air is thick, soupy with a humidity that clings to your skin like a second layer, smelling of salt, wet earth, and something else, something like decay, but also teeming with life. Before you lies a vast, primordial sea, its surface like murky glass under a hazy white sky. We are in the Campanian age of the Late Cretaceous, about 80 million years in the past. But it's the water in front of you that holds the real story, the real terror. This water, this vast murky expanse, is flowing over land that, in 80 million years, will become Kansas, Nebraska, the Dakotas, landlocked places that have long forgotten the feeling of an ocean tide. For millions of years, this inland sea will swell and shrink, a vast, warm water crucible creating life at an astonishing rate. It will become an evolutionary arms race, a laboratory for building monsters, each generation more terrifying than the last. Reptiles will return to the water and become tyrants. Fish will grow to the size of buses. Sharks will hone their killing craft to a razor's edge. So what made this particular body of water so uniquely deadly? Why did it become home to the highest concentration of mega-predators the world has ever known? And what would it truly feel like to be adrift in an ocean where you are never, ever at the top of the food chain? Thanks to the incredible fossil record left behind when this ocean dried up, we can piece together this lost world. Tonight, we will dive into this prehistoric sea together to find the answers. Frankly, if you were actually dropped here in person, your life expectancy would be measured in minutes, and that's being generous. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. That small click sends a big signal to the algorithm. That long-form, serious educational content still matters. And to me, it's an incredibly meaningful show of support. Thank you so much for helping keep this channel going strong. It always fascinates me to see where you're all tuning in from. Let me know in the comments where you are in the world and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The shoreline you're standing on isn't sand, but a dark, rich mud, punctuated by the strange, waxy leaves of plants you can't name. Giant, fern-like trees stand in dense groves behind you, their fronds drooping in the oppressive heat. There are no birds singing, only the drone of insects and the soft, rhythmic lapping of the water at your feet. You are on the eastern coast of North America, a continent that has been fractured in two. The landmass beneath your feet is Appalachia. Far to the west, beyond the horizon of this endless water, is the other half, Laramidia, the island continent that will one day give us Tyrannosaurus rex. And the sea between them, we call it the Western Interior Seaway. A truly epic body of water, it stretched all the way from the chilly boreal ocean in the north, what we now call the Arctic, down to the tropical Tethys Sea, which would eventually become the Gulf of Mexico. At its widest, it was over 1,000 kilometers across. But its most defining feature wasn't its width, but its depth. For a body of water so vast, it was shockingly shallow, averaging perhaps only a few hundred feet deep in most places, and rarely plunging into true abyssal darkness. This created a unique environment, a massive, sun-drenched, warm water basin. Scholars still debate the exact salinity of these surface waters, but all agree it was a hyper-productive cauldron of life. The perfect nursery, the perfect hunting ground. You look out at that water, it's calm, almost placid, the color of tea, stained with tannins and sediment washed down from the young mountain ranges rising to the west. It doesn't look like much. It doesn't look like the deadliest sea in the history of the planet. It doesn't look like the place paleontologists have nicknamed Hell's Aquarium. But the fossil record, the silent stone that holds the memory of this place, tells us a different story. It tells of a relentless 30-million-year dynasty of terror that thrived just beneath this calm surface. There's only one way to understand it. The water laps at your ankles. It's uncomfortably warm, like bath water left to sit for too long. You take another step, the soft mud squelching between your toes. The water is up to your knees now. There are no warning signs, no fins cutting the surface. There is only the vast, quiet water and the sinking feeling that you are no longer on solid ground. You are a guest now, an intruder in a world that does not belong to you, and the owners are about to make their presence known. The water is up to your waist now, and you can no longer see your own feet. The murk is absolute, a swirling soup of silt and organic matter. Visibility ends just inches from your face. You move slowly, cautiously, pushing through the thick, heavy water. Ahead, the estuary opens up slightly. The banks are a tangled mess of roots that look like gnarled knuckles, plunging into the water from strange, mangrove-like trees. The air is still. Everything is still. It's the kind of silence that feels heavy, like a blanket pressing in on you. It's the silence of a place where every creature knows that making a sound is an invitation. Then you see it. About 50 yards ahead, a long, dark shape is floating on the surface. A log, you assume. A big one, stripped of its bark, bleached by the sun. It seems to be a small point of stability in this shifting, uncertain world. But something is wrong. The gentle current of the estuary is flowing out, toward the open seaway, yet the log seems to be drifting slowly, almost imperceptibly, inland. Against the current. Your mind tries to rationalize it. An odd eddy, perhaps, a trick of the light on the rippling surface. But you stop moving, your feet sinking into the soft mud of the estuary floor. You watch the log. It is definitely moving, a slow, deliberate crawl upstream. Then, without a splash, it sinks. It doesn't bob or roll. One moment it is there, a solid mass on the water, and the next it has vanished, submerged with a slick, silent efficiency that is utterly unnatural. The water where it was is unnervingly calm. You feel a deep, primal instinct scream at you to get out of the water, to retreat to the shore, but you are frozen, staring at the empty space. You feel a change in the pressure around your legs, a subtle displacement of water, as if something immense has just passed by, deep beneath you. The surface breaks again, much closer this time. It isn't a log. It's a series of broad, dark, bony plates, like enormous cobblestones set into a leathery hide. They rise just enough to disturb the surface, forming a long, armored ridge that glides through the water with terrifying purpose. This is the back of a living creature, and you've just realized that the log was merely the top of its snout. You are in the water with Deinosuchus. The name means terrible crocodile, and it is a profound understatement. You immediately try to gauge its size, and the calculation is chilling. This is not just a big crocodile. Modern saltwater crocs, the largest reptiles on Earth today, top out at around 6 meters. The creature in front of you, you estimate, is at least double that. Fossil evidence confirms your fear. The largest specimens of Deinosuchus reached up to 12 meters, or 39 feet, the length of a telephone pole or a school bus, and weighed a staggering 8.5 tons. This animal is in a completely different weight class from its modern relatives. It's an apex predator built on a reptilian chassis, but scaled up to near dinosaurian proportions. The proof of this animal's existence comes not from pristine skeletons, but from the colossal fragments it left behind. Paleontologists working in Texas and Montana have unearthed vertebrae the size of dinner plates and skull fragments that map out a head over 6 feet long. It's from these scattered titanic bones that we have pieced together the sheer scale of the beast. And its most distinctive feature is that armor you're seeing. Those bony plates embedded in its skin are called osteoderms. In Deinosuchus, they were unusually large and thick, so much so that when some were first discovered, paleontologists initially confused them for the armor of an Ankylosaurus. This wasn't just for defense. This dense, bony shield would have made it nearly impervious to attack from any contemporary predator foolish enough to try. The seaway was a dangerous place, and Deinosuchus came prepared. As you watch it glide past, a silent, armored behemoth, you understand that this is the guardian of the threshold, the living landmine of the estuary. And as it moves, you're left to wonder about its patrol route. Paleontologists still debate how far the Deinosuchus would venture from the coast into the open seaway. But right now, that academic question feels terrifyingly immediate. It has passed you. For now, its wake a gentle ripple that belies the immense power that created it. You are left alone again, your heart pounding in the suffocating silence of its domain. The great armored reptile glides into the deeper part of the estuary, and you think it's gone. You start to back away, your movements slow and deliberate, trying not to send any panicked vibrations through the water. But then the pressure shifts again. The creature circles back, and this time, its head breaks the surface. It's not a lunge or an attack. It's a slow, deliberate survey of its domain. And you get a clear look at the source of its power. Its head is immense, a monstrous spade of bone and muscle that is easily 6 feet long. It's not slender and pointed like a modern crocodile's, which is designed for snapping quickly at fish. This snout is broad, rounded, and brutally thick, like the front end of an alligator scaled up to an absurd degree. The entire skull is a testament to structural reinforcement, a platform for the most powerful bite in this entire ocean. You can almost see the bulges of the jaw-closing muscles beneath the skin, colossal engines of force anchored to a cranium the size of a small armchair. The science behind this bite is the stuff of nightmares. Biomechanical models based on its skull structure suggest a bite force of over 100,000 newtons. It's a number so large it's almost meaningless. So let's put it in perspective. That's more than twice the estimated bite force of a Tyrannosaurus rex. It's enough force to shatter steel, to crush a small car. The jaws were not designed to merely pierce flesh. They were designed to make a mockery of any defense, to turn bone, armor, and shell into splinters. You can see the instruments of this power as it lifts its snout slightly. Its teeth are not uniform. Near the front they are sharp, conical pegs, perfect for gripping a struggling animal and preventing its escape. But it's the teeth in the back that are truly horrifying. They are not blades. They are stout, robust, almost peg-like columns of enamel and dentin, some as thick as your wrist. They are hammers, anvils. They are instruments of pure pulverization. The Deinosuchus didn't need to be precise. It didn't need to find a weak spot. It made its own. Fossil evidence gives us a chilling window into how it used this weapon. In the rocks of North America, paleontologists have found the bones of large hadrosaurs, duck-billed dinosaurs, bearing the unmistakable signature of a Deinosuchus attack, gouges from the front teeth and crushing fractures from the back. The classic hunting technique was likely pure, terrifying ambush. It would wait, submerged and invisible, near the water's edge, until a dinosaur came to drink. Then, an explosion of water and an impact like a runaway truck. It would drag its prey into the water, and if its sheer size and the initial impact weren't enough, it would employ the death roll, using its immense mass to tear its victim apart. From the relative safety of the estuary bank, which you've now scrambled onto, you witness a demonstration. A large sea turtle, easily 6 feet across its shell, paddles serenely into the estuary from the open seaway. Its thick, bony carapace has protected its lineage for millions of years. It is a living fortress. The Deinosuchus, which had submerged again, strikes from directly below. There is no chase, just a geyser of white water and a sound, a deep, sickening crunch, like a boulder being dropped on the roof of a car. The turtle's shell, its ultimate defense, offers no more resistance than an eggshell. It simply implodes under the pressure. The terrible crocodile adjusts its grip once, twice, and swallows the shattered remains. You are left with a profound understanding. This creature is not a sleek, elegant monster. It is a brute. It is an engine of pure, uncompromising force, a living testament to the power of the crush. It is the guardian of the line between land and sea, ensuring that anything that dares to cross that boundary does so at its own extreme peril. You leave the estuary behind, putting the oppressive memory of the terrible crocodile at your back. You move out into the open seaway, into water that feels cleaner, clearer. The tea-colored stain of the coast gives way to a hazy, sunlit green. The bottom is no longer soft mud, but a firm bed of sand and crushed shells, visible perhaps 20 or 30 feet below. Sunlight filters down from the surface in shimmering, shifting columns, illuminating schools of small, silvery fish that dart and weave in perfect unison. For the first time, this world feels less like a trap and more like a vibrant, living ocean. The claustrophobia of the shore is gone, replaced by the immense, calming emptiness of the open water. It's out here, in the deceptive peace of the sunlit shallows, that you encounter a true giant. It is not a predator that reveals itself with a surge of violence, but a vast, slow-moving shape that resolves out of the hazy distance. It is a turtle, but a turtle on a scale you can scarcely comprehend. You are floating alongside Archelon, the ruling turtle. Its sheer size is breathtaking. It is not just large, it is monumental. It is the size of a small car, a classic Volkswagen Beetle complete with enormous leathery flippers. The head is huge, with a powerful hooked beak like that of a colossal eagle, perfectly designed for shearing through the soft bodies of squid and jellyfish. But its most peculiar feature is its shell. It isn't a solid dome of bone like that of a modern sea turtle. Instead, it is a framework of bony struts, like the ribs of a canoe, covered by a thick, tough, leathery skin. This was a crucial adaptation. A solid shell of this size would have been impossibly heavy, weighing the creature down. By reducing the bone to a load-bearing frame, Archelon could reach its colossal size while remaining relatively lightweight and buoyant. This is not speculation. Archelon is the largest turtle ever documented. The most famous fossil, a specimen nicknamed Brigitta, was discovered in South Dakota in the 1990s and measures over 4 meters, or 13 feet, from beak to tail, and is even wider from flipper-tip to flipper-tip. It is a creature of superlatives. You watch it, mesmerized. Its lifestyle seems to be one of serene, unhurried grace. It moves with slow, deliberate flaps of its massive foreflippers, a form of underwater flight. It is an air breather, and you follow it as it makes its languid ascent to the surface. It breaks through the water with a soft whoosh, its great reptilian head turning slowly to survey the horizon before it takes a deep, sighing breath, and sinks once more into the green depths. This animal is not a monster. It is a pillar of the ecosystem, a gentle giant that has no enemies, or so it seems. It represents the vast biomass of non-predatory life that is required to fuel the engines of the great hunters. For there to be so many killers, there must be a world of potential victims. You float alongside the great turtle, caught in its peaceful rhythm. The sunlight warms your back. The water is calm. For a few minutes, you can almost forget where you are. You can imagine this is a safe place. The gentle behemoth beside you is a calming presence, a silent companion in this ancient sea. Then everything changes. The turtle's slow, graceful strokes become frantic, clumsy. Its head whips around, its beak snapping at the water below it. Panic has seized the gentle giant. It tries to flee, its huge flippers churning the water into a froth, but its movements are no longer efficient. They are the desperate, flailing struggles of a creature that knows it has been seen by something it cannot fight. You look down into the hazy green depths from which it is so desperately trying to escape. A shape is rising from below. It is long, sleek, and impossibly fast. It is not a turtle, and it is not alone. The threat that has sent the colossal Archelon into a state of panic is not one single entity, but many. A pack of sharks emerges from the deeper water, their movements a symphony of predatory grace. They are not the hulking giants of your imagination, but they are brutally efficient. You are looking at Squalicorax, more commonly known as the crow shark. They are the wolves of this ancient sea. They are medium-sized by Cretaceous standards, but formidable nonetheless. Most are between 4 and 5 meters long, roughly the size and build of a modern tiger shark. And the comparison is apt. Their bodies are sleek, powerful, and built for versatility. As they circle the panicked turtle, you get a clear view of their weaponry. Their mouths are filled with numerous relatively small teeth, but they are wickedly effective. Each tooth is broad, curved, and heavily serrated, like a steak knife. They aren't designed for a single clean puncture, but for sawing through tough hide, flesh, and bone. They are the perfect tools for a pack hunter, allowing many individuals to take turns biting and tearing away flesh from a much larger animal. Their presence here is no surprise. Fossil teeth of Squalicorax are one of the most common vertebrate fossils found in the Western Interior Seaway. Their abundance tells a clear story. These sharks were everywhere. They were the ultimate opportunists, a constant, menacing presence in every zone of the seaway, from the murky estuaries to the open, sunlit waters. They were the cleanup crew, the scavengers, the relentless mob that would test the defenses of any creature, no matter its size. While the pack circles the giant turtle, their attention is suddenly diverted. A shadow passes overhead, and you look up to see a massive pteranodon gliding on the thermal currents, its wingspan easily 20 feet across. It circles once, twice, then folds its wings and dives, hitting the water with a splash as it snatches a fish near the surface. For the pterosaur, this is a routine act, repeated 1,000 times, but for one of the crow sharks, it is an opportunity. In a stunning display of power and timing, the shark accelerates from the depths. It doesn't just lunge, it explodes from the water, its body clearing the surface in a shower of spray. Its jaws snap shut on the pteranodon, just as the flying reptile attempts to take off, its beak still full of fish. The sound of splintering hollow bones is sharp and clear in the open air. The shark twists, its serrated teeth doing their work, and drags the broken creature down into the green depths. This isn't a fringe theory or a wild guess. Paleontologists have found pteranodon wing bones with the distinct serrated bite marks of Squalicorax etched into them, a fossilized record of an aerial hunter being taken by a Marine One. It's a stark reminder that in this place, death can come from any direction. The pack leaves the Archelon alone. The adult turtle's sheer size and leathery armor are likely too much of a challenge for them to tackle directly. But they don't leave the area. They continue to circle, a persistent, shadowy carousel of teeth and muscle. Their presence is a sign. The brief moment of peace you felt in the company of the gentle giant is definitively over. The sharks are a living, breathing indicator that the ecosystem is shifting around you. They are the heralds of greater dangers, a promise that the true monsters are never far away. The Archelon seems to understand this as it continues its frantic, panicked swim toward the unknown horizon. The pack of crow sharks continues their circling, but their rhythm is broken. They seem agitated, nervous. The confident swagger of the pack has dissolved into scattered, anxious movements. They are reacting to something that you cannot yet see, a presence in the deeper water that even they, the consummate opportunists, have learned to respect and to fear. The giant turtle, Archelon, seems to feel it too. It's already panicked, flailing, taking on a new level of desperation. It knows that the wolves are the least of its problems. Then you see it. A larger, solitary shadow detaching itself from the hazy, green floor of the seaway. It rises with a slow, deliberate confidence that makes the frantic energy of the Squalicorax seem trivial. This is no scavenger. This is not part of the cleanup crew. This is a purpose-built killing machine, an apex predator in its own right, and its presence commands the water. The shadow resolves into the classic, terrifying torpedo shape of a great shark. But this is no great white. This is its ancient and arguably more formidable predecessor, Cretoxyrhina mantelli. You know it by its more common and more fitting name, the Ginsu Shark. Its credentials are unimpeachable. Growing up to 8 meters, or 26 feet, in length, and weighing over 5 tons, it was significantly larger and more robust than the biggest great white shark swimming in our oceans today. It was a true giant, and it sat near the very top of this impossibly violent food web. Its body is a masterpiece of hydrodynamic design, a thick, muscular fuselage with long pectoral fins for steering and a crescent-shaped tail that speaks of incredible speed and power. But it's the mouth, the feature that gives it its name, that truly sets it apart. As it glides closer, you see its teeth. They are not serrated like the saw blades of the crow shark. They are large, broad, and smooth-edged, tapering to needle-sharp points. They look like a row of polished daggers, or, as their nickname suggests, a set of perfectly honed Ginsu knives. And the science behind these teeth reveals their terrifying purpose. Chemical analysis of the fossils shows their enamel coating was unusually thick, far thicker than that of a great white. This was not a tooth designed for delicately sawing off a piece of flesh. This was a tooth built to withstand catastrophic, high-speed impacts with bone, cartilage, and armor. This was a weapon for smashing and grabbing, for inflicting devastating damage in a single explosive strike. The proof of its prowess is written in stone. The fossilized bones of other giants from the seaway are its resume. Paleontologists have pulled mosasaur vertebrae from the Kansas chalk beds with the massive, smooth-edged gashes left by a Cretoxyrhina bite. They have found the paddle bones of plesiosaurs nearly severed by a single attack. The evidence is irrefutable. This shark did not shy away from conflict. It actively hunted the other monsters on this list. It was a predator of predators. This raises a fascinating question about its behavior and experts argue whether Cretoxyrhina was primarily a solitary hunter, an alpha predator carving out its own territory, or if it occasionally formed loose groups to take down the very largest of prey, like a full-grown Tylosaurus. As it cruises into the area, the pack of Squalicorax gives it a wide berth, melting back into the gloom. The Ginsu Shark ignores them, its movements calm and economical. It is the arrival of the executioner, and its cold, black eyes are fixed on the struggling, colossal turtle. You are no longer watching a pack of wolves harassing a bison. You are about to witness a lion moving in for the kill. This is no chase. It's a calculated, terrifyingly swift execution. The Ginsu Shark is a creature of pure, explosive violence, and you are about to witness the physics of an apex predator at work. The secret to its lethality lies not just in its jaws, but in its incredible speed. Its entire body is a testament to the evolutionary pressure to move through water with minimal resistance and maximum force. You can see the pattern of its skin, the tiny, tooth-like placoid scales that reduce drag, a design that engineers would later copy for competitive swimwear and the hulls of racing yachts. Its tail fin is the engine, a perfectly symmetrical, crescent-shaped hydrofoil. Scientists call this an extreme Type 4 tail fin, the most specialized design seen in any mackerel shark, living or extinct. It is an anatomical signature of high-speed pursuit. Models based on its physiology suggest this giant could have achieved bursts of speed topping 70 kilometers, or 43 miles, per hour. It could move like a biological torpedo. The shark doesn't circle. It doesn't test its prey. It identifies its target, the giant, struggling Archelon, and commits to the attack. It drops deeper, disappearing for a moment into the hazy green, positioning itself directly below the turtle. Then, it strikes. It launches a vertical assault, its powerful tail driving it upward at an impossible speed. The water around it seems to boil as it rockets toward the surface. The impact is catastrophic. The Ginsu Shark slams into the underside of the Archelon, its pointed snout striking first, followed by the full force of its 5-ton body. The sound is a deep, resonant boom that you feel in your chest, a shockwave that ripples through the water. The turtle, for all its car-sized bulk, is thrown sideways, its leathery shell offering little resistance to the kinetic energy of the attack. Before the turtle can even register the impact, the shark's jaws open to an impossibly wide gape and clamp down on one of its massive rear flippers. The shark's razor-sharp, non-serrated teeth sink deep into flesh and bone. There is no sawing motion. The shark simply bites down, its immense jaw muscles contracting, and uses its forward momentum to tear and shear. It's a devastatingly effective technique. The thick enamel of its teeth allows them to function like indestructible wedges, splitting bone and cartilage. In a shower of blood that clouds the water, the shark rips the enormous flipper clean off the turtle's body. The attack establishes the brutal, unforgiving hierarchy of Hell's Aquarium. Even a giant, armored creature is not safe. Size alone is no guarantee of survival. The Ginsu Shark was a specialist, a hunter of other giants. Its place in the food web is cemented by fossils that tell stories of its predatory dominance. In one incredible find from Kansas, the fossilized skeleton of a giant 4-meter Xiphactinus, a formidable predator in its own right, was discovered with a massive Cretoxyrhina tooth permanently embedded in its vertebrae. The bulldog fish had been hunted and killed by the shark. It's a cold, hard piece of evidence that shows the Ginsu Shark's role was to keep the other monsters in check. The shark swallows the severed limb in a single gulp and circles back, its movements still calm, economical, and utterly terrifying. The wounded Archelon is mortally wounded, trailing a thick plume of blood, its panicked movements now weak and uncoordinated. The brief, violent encounter is over. The Ginsu Shark has asserted its dominance, reminding everything in this patch of ocean that even the monsters have monsters that hunt them. There is no safety in size, no sanctuary in armor. There is only the hunter and the hunted. The Ginsu Shark circles the remains of its kill, a dark, victorious specter in water clouded with blood. The smaller crow sharks, which had scattered at its arrival, now cautiously return, drawn by the scent, hoping for scraps from the tyrant's table. The brutal efficiency of the kill has left a heavy tension in the water, a palpable sense of fear. It is in this moment of bloody climax that a new shadow appears, one that dwarfs everything else you have seen. It is a shape that blots out the sun, a living eclipse gliding through the upper layers of the seaway. At first you think it's a whale, but whales won't exist for another 30 million years. This is a shark, but it's on a completely different scale. It is easily 10 meters long, perhaps more, with the broad, flattened head and immense cavernous mouth of a whale shark. It moves with a slow, majestic indifference, its great body displacing the water in a silent, powerful surge. This is Tycadus, and its arrival changes the atmosphere completely. The hyper-aggressive Ginsu Shark, the undisputed killer of this domain, pays the new arrival no mind. It is not a rival. It is not a threat. It is something else entirely. You brace yourself for another display of predatory power, but it never comes. This colossal creature is not interested in the turtle, the blood, or the other sharks. You have just met the great exception to the Seaway's rule of violence. This giant is not a threat to you or to any other vertebrate. Tycadus is a durophage, a specialist shell-eater. It is a gentle giant, a living nutcracker in a world of knives and spears. As it passes overhead, you get a glimpse into its impossibly wide mouth, and you see one of the strangest dental arrangements in the history of life. There are no sharp, pointed teeth. There are no serrated blades. Its mouth is filled with hundreds of flat, square, and rectangular teeth, fused together into massive, pavement-like plates. It looks less like a jaw and more like a pair of industrial grinding mills. These bizarre tooth plates are incredibly dense and durable. In fact, the scientific evidence for this shark's existence comes almost exclusively from these fossilized dental plates. Its cartilaginous skeleton rarely survived, but its mouth pavements were so robust that they littered the sea floor of the Cretaceous, a testament to the shark's incredible success and abundance across the globe. It was the nutcracker of the Cretaceous seas, a highly specialized predator that ignored the flesh and blood drama of the seaway to focus on a different kind of prey, the hard-shelled invertebrates that carpeted the ocean floor. Scientists still puzzle over the exact mechanics of its feeding, whether it gently scooped prey from the seafloor or used powerful suction to pull stubborn shellfish into its crushing maw. You watch as the giant shark begins a slow, graceful descent. It passes through the cloud of blood without a flicker of interest and continues down toward the seabed 30 feet below. The ocean floor here is a garden of bivalves, home to giant, platycized inoceramid clams. The Tycadus cruises just above the bottom, its shadow passing over the clam beds. It selects its target, a clam the size of a hubcap, and with a gentle tilt of its body, it scoops the creature into its mouth. There is a pause, and then you hear it, a sound that travels clearly through the water, a deep, resonant crunch. It's the sound of calcite and mother of pearl, the product of millions of years of patient biological construction, being turned into gravel by the effortless force of the shark's jaws. It swallows and continues its slow, methodical harvest. The presence of this creature adds a profound new layer to your understanding of this place. It proves that the Western Interior Seaway wasn't just a linear food chain of ever bigger killers. It was a complex, diverse ecosystem with giants in every niche. It could support a 10-meter shark that specialized in nothing but cracking shells. It is a moment of strange, peaceful brutality that stands in stark contrast to the red violence of the Ginsu Shark, and a reminder that this ancient ocean was more wonderful and far weirder than you could have ever imagined. The deep, resonant crunch of the Tycadus crushing another clam echoes through the water, a strangely peaceful sound in this otherwise violent world. The giant shell-eater continues its methodical harvest on the seafloor, oblivious to the drama unfolding above. The blood from the turtle kill still hangs in the water, a red-tinged cloud that is slowly dissipating, but its scent has drawn in smaller, bolder fish. A school of bony fish, each about the size of a large tuna, darts in and out of the cloud, snatching floating scraps of flesh. They are sleek, fast, and seem to know that the immediate danger from the Ginsu Shark has passed. You watch them, a flash of normalcy in this alien environment. They are just fish, doing what fish do. One of them, a particularly bold individual about 6 feet long, darts a little too far from the school, chasing a larger piece of drifting cartilage. In that instant, it vanishes. There is no chase, no struggle, no sound. One moment it is there, a living creature of silver scales and muscle, and the next it is simply gone, replaced by a swirl of water. Its disappearance is so total and so sudden, it feels like a magic trick. Then you see the magician. A massive fish hangs in the water where the smaller one used to be. It is not sleek and elegant like a shark. It is brutish, ugly, and radiates pure menace. Its head is huge and disproportionate to its body, with a pushed-back, bulldog-like face and a severe underbite that juts out aggressively. Its mouth is permanently agape, revealing a palisade of long, fang-like teeth that look like uneven shards of glass. This is Xiphactinus, a name that scarcely does justice to the sheer, predatory ugliness of the creature. At 5 to 6 meters, up to 20 feet in length, this is no mere fish. It's a living torpedo with an attitude problem. Its defining feature, and the source of its terrifying reputation, is its mouth. It's not just the teeth. The entire jaw structure is a marvel of predatory engineering. It was highly flexible, able to swing wide and deep, creating a massive, circular gape. It didn't just bite its prey, it inhaled it. By rapidly expanding its mouth and gill cavity, it could create a powerful vacuum, sucking in anything unfortunate enough to be directly in front of it. It swallowed its victims whole, a feat of gluttony that has been immortalized in stone. This brings us to one of the most famous and astonishing fossils ever discovered. In Kansas, the paleontologist George Sternberg unearthed the skeleton of a 14-foot-long Xiphactinus, but inside its ribcage was another perfectly preserved skeleton, a 6-foot-long fish called Gylicus. The larger fish had swallowed the smaller one whole, head first. The fossil captures the last, greedy act of the Xiphactinus. The prey is entirely undigested, suggesting the predator died moments after its meal. Perhaps the desperate struggles of the swallowed fish ruptured an internal organ, or perhaps it simply choked on its own avarice. Whatever the cause, it left us with a perfect, stony snapshot of this creature's voracious appetite. You have just witnessed a live-action replay of that famous fossil. The Xiphactinus hangs in the water, its massive body making a single, convulsive shudder as it forces its meal down. It shows no sign of distress. It simply consumed a 6-foot fish as an appetizer and is already scanning for the main course. Scientists still debate whether Xiphactinus was a solitary hunter, a lone bully ambushing anything that crossed its path, or if they formed loose, aggressive shoals, turning entire sections of the seaway into a chaotic feeding frenzy. As it turns its dead, emotionless eyes in your direction, you feel a different kind of fear. The sharks, for all their terror, felt like calculated predators. There was an intelligence there, a strategy. The Xiphactinus feels like something else entirely. It is pure, indiscriminate, insatiable hunger. It is a stomach with a tail, an engine of consumption that seems to operate on a single, simple command: devour. And in an ocean already filled with intelligent killers, the presence of a giant, mindless eating machine somehow makes it all infinitely more terrifying. You let the brutish Xiphactinus disappear into the gloom, a fading image of mindless hunger. To escape the lingering tension, you allow yourself to drift deeper, leaving the sunlit surface world behind. The vibrant green of the upper ocean slowly bleeds away, replaced by a deep, dusky blue. The shimmering columns of sunlight that once danced around you have faded into a uniform, hazy twilight. This is the mesopelagic zone, a world of shadows and strange, fleeting lights. Bioluminescent creatures begin to flicker in the periphery of your vision, tiny, ghostly sparks in an endless, darkening void. It's down here, in the quiet ambiguity of the twilight zone, that you begin to see things that don't make sense. Strange shapes move in the far distance, their silhouettes distorted by the thick, light-starved water. And then you see one that defies all biological logic. It is a shape so bizarre, so anatomically impossible that your brain struggles to process it. It's a body, broad and flat like a turtle's, propelled by 4 large, paddle-like flippers. But attached to this body is a neck of such absurd length that it seems to be a separate creature entirely. You are looking at the icon of the prehistoric seas, the living embodiment of a sea serpent myth, Elasmosaurus. You approach the creature, and its paradoxical anatomy comes into sharper focus. The body is the size of a city bus, a huge, buoyant barrel of muscle and bone. But the neck is a biological marvel. It stretches on and on, a slender, tapering column that is easily twice the length of the creature's entire body. Out of a total length of 11 to 12 meters, a full 7 of those meters are just neck. At the very end of this incredible appendage is a comically small, streamlined head. It looks less like a single cohesive animal and more like a tiny snake that has somehow managed to hijack the body of a giant sea turtle. This isn't an exaggeration. This is a scientific fact. Elasmosaurus had 72 cervical vertebrae in its neck, the most of any known animal in Earth's history. For comparison, you have 7. A giraffe, for all its famous height, also has only 7. This creature was an anatomical outlier, an evolutionary experiment in just how far a neck could be stretched. But this incredible structure came with limitations. For over a century, popular culture has depicted Elasmosaurus rearing its head high out of the water in a graceful, swan-like curve, the classic image of the Loch Ness monster. But the science tells us this was impossible. The vertebrae, while numerous, were not built for that kind of flexibility. The neck was relatively stiff, especially at its base. It couldn't be coiled like a snake or held aloft like a swan. A more accurate, if less romantic analogy would be a fishing rod. Long, somewhat flexible, but ultimately designed to project the head forward, not upward. This anatomical reality has fueled one of the longest-running discussions in marine paleontology. Scientists long debated how they used this neck. The old, dramatic theories of it, striking at prey from high above the surface, have been discarded. Newer models, based on a more accurate understanding of its biomechanics, paint a different picture. Some suggest it was used for bottom feeding, the animal hovering over the seafloor and using its long reach to probe for shellfish and small crustaceans in the mud. A more popular and compelling theory, however, casts it as a masterful ambush predator. Its great, bus-sized body would remain hidden in the gloom of the deep, while its tiny head, perched on the end of that impossibly long neck, could be stealthily maneuvered into a school of unsuspecting fish. The fish would see only a small, non-threatening shape, unaware of the massive engine of consumption it was attached to. As you watch the bizarre creature drift through the twilight, its head sweeping in slow, deliberate arcs, you can see the logic of this hunting strategy. It is a creature of stealth and surprise, a living periscope in a world of brute force. Its existence is another testament to the incredible specialization that the Seaway fostered. It wasn't just home to the biggest and the strongest, but also the longest and the strangest. The great Elasmosaurus drifts through the twilight abyss, its tiny head a pale specter at the end of its impossible neck. You begin to understand that this creature was not built for a world of titanic clashes and brute force confrontations. It was a specialist, a precision instrument in an orchestra of sledgehammers. Its entire existence was a solution to a problem: how to get a mouth close to small, fast-moving prey without alerting them to the bus-sized body it was attached to. The neck was the answer. It was a tool of deception. You watch as it puts this tool to use. Below you, a shimmering bioluminescent shoal of squid-like belemnites pulses through the water, their movements hypnotic. The Elasmosaurus spots them. Its great dark body comes to a halt, hanging almost motionless in the water column, becoming just another large, ignorable shadow in a world of shadows. Then, the neck begins to move. It extends forward, slowly with no sudden jerks, its small head gliding silently toward the unsuspecting shoal. From the belemnite's perspective, this is not a threat. It's just a small, fish-sized object approaching. Their own survival instincts, honed to detect the pressure waves of large approaching bodies, are not triggered. The colossal predator remains effectively invisible. As the head gets closer, you can finally see the details of its mouth. The jaws are long and slender, and they are lined not with the tearing blades of a shark or the crushing pegs of a crocodile, but with something that looks like a row of long, thin needles. The teeth are perfectly conical, interlocking with one another when the mouth is closed. This was not a jaw designed to bite, slice, or crush. It was a cage, a fish trap. Once this mouth snapped shut around a slippery, struggling fish or squid, the interlocking needles would form an impenetrable barrier. There was simply no escape. This unique anatomy, so perfectly adapted for its purpose, was once the source of one of the most famous blunders in the history of science. When the very first nearly complete Elasmosaurus skeleton was discovered in Kansas in the 1860s, the great paleontologist Edward Drinker Cope hastily reconstructed it. In his rush to publish, he made a critical error. The neck was so long and the tail so relatively short that he couldn't believe the neck was a neck. He famously placed the skull on the wrong end, mounting it on the tip of the tail. This mistake was a major embarrassment for Cope, especially after it was pointed out by his bitter rival, Othniel Charles Marsh, adding fuel to the fire of their infamous Bone Wars. It's a quirky, humanizing story. Even the brilliant minds who first unearthed these monsters could be baffled by their bizarre reality. You see the final moments of the hunt play out. The head is now just a few feet from the shoal. The belemnites are still oblivious. Then, in the last instant, the plesiosaur strikes. The neck muscles contract, whipping the head forward in a short, swift arc. The jaws snap open and then shut with an audible click that echoes in the silent water. The trap is sprung. Several of the belemnites are caught in the cage of needles, writhing futilely. The Elasmosaurus lifts its head, swallowing its catch with a ripple of its long throat. And the hunt is over. It was an act of quiet, efficient, and highly specialized predation. It was not a battle. It was a harvest. The creature's success lay not in overwhelming power, but in its profound anatomical strangeness, a perfect weapon for a world where even the shadows had teeth. The quiet, methodical hunt of the Elasmosaurus fades into the background as you ascend from the twilight zone, returning to the brighter, more energetic waters of the upper ocean. The experience with the long-necked giant has cemented a particular image of what a plesiosaur is: a slow, strange, stealthy creature. But the Seaway was an evolutionary laboratory renowned for its diversity, and the plesiosaur lineage was no exception. It's here, in the sun-dappled upper layers, that you meet the other side of the family, and they are nothing like their long-necked cousins. A flash of movement catches your eye. Not the slow, deliberate glide of an ambush predator, but a rapid, playful-looking streak of motion. A small group of animals is porpoising through the water, their bodies arcing gracefully near the surface. At first glance, you mistake them for dolphins. They have the same streamlined, fusiform bodies, the same energetic and seemingly social behavior. But as they get closer, you see the details are all wrong. They don't have a single, powerful tail fluke. They are propelled by 4 large wing-like flippers, 2 in the front and 2 in the back, beating in a complex, powerful rhythm that gives them incredible agility and speed. You are watching a pod of dolichorinchops, a type of short-necked plesiosaur known as a polycotylid. Their build is a perfect example of convergent evolution, where unrelated species develop similar traits to solve similar problems. To be a fast, agile hunter of fish in the open ocean, the dolphin body plan is a winner, and the polycotylids arrived at that same solution millions of years earlier. They were smaller than their elasmosaurid relatives, typically around 3 to 5 meters long. Their necks were short and muscular, supporting a proportionally larger, more crocodile-like head filled with a mesh of sharp, fish-grabbing teeth. They were the cheetahs of the plesiosaur world, a stark contrast to the giraffes you just left in the depths. Their lifestyle was one of active, relentless pursuit. You watch the pod as they work together to corral a school of shimmering fish. Their movements are a blur. They are incredibly maneuverable, able to use their 4 flippers to pivot, roll, and accelerate in ways that a tail-propelled animal simply cannot. They are the 4-wheel drive of marine reptiles. They dart into the school, snapping up fish with quick, precise movements of their long jaws. The hunt is over in seconds, a display of coordinated, high-speed efficiency that feels utterly modern and completely at odds with the ancient, alien strangeness of the Elasmosaurus. This energetic, open-ocean lifestyle required a critical adaptation, one that severed the final tie these marine reptiles had to the land. In a remarkable fossil find, a specimen of a related polycotylid was discovered with the fossilized remains of a large fetus inside its body cavity. This was conclusive proof that these animals gave live birth in the water. They did not have to haul themselves onto beaches to lay eggs like modern sea turtles, a slow, vulnerable process that would have been a death sentence in a place patrolled by Deinosuchus. They were completely, perfectly at home in the sea, born into the water and spending their entire lives there. This evidence helps flesh out the story of this diverse group, proving that the plesiosaurs weren't just a one-trick evolutionary pony. They had conquered the Seaway with a variety of body plans and hunting strategies, from the stealthy ambush of the long necks to the high-speed pursuit of these four-flippered dolphins. They were another layer of complexity, another strand in the impossibly tangled and dangerous food web of this incredible ocean. The playful, high-speed hunt of the dolphin-like polycotyllids is a welcome dose of vibrant, energetic life. For a moment, you are captivated by their coordinated grace, a sight that feels familiar and almost comforting. But in the Western Interior Seaway, comfort is a fleeting illusion, a brief pause between moments of terror. The pod's joyful hunt comes to an abrupt, panicked halt. The fish they were chasing are forgotten. The entire group freezes, their bodies tense, before scattering in every direction as if a bomb has gone off in their midst. They have sensed a presence that you have not. A deep, resonant pressure wave moving through the water. A predator that even they, the swift and agile hunters, are utterly powerless against. You search the water for the source of their panic. A dark shape resolves in the gloom, but it lacks the sleek, torpedo-like profile of a shark or the serpentine grace of a mosasaur. This is something else. Something heavy, dense, and uncompromisingly powerful. It is a plesiosaur, but it shares no resemblance to the delicate Elasmosaurus or the nimble dolichorin chops. This is a pliosaur, the other darker branch of the family tree. This is Brachiochenius, and it is the true sea monster you were taught to fear. Its body is a 10-meter-long battering ram of muscle and bone, but what is truly shocking is its proportions. Nearly a third of its entire body length is its head. The neck is short, thick, and packed with muscle, designed not for reach, but for leverage, supporting a skull of terrifying size and power. It is the aquatic equivalent of a tyrannosaur, a creature whose entire evolutionary trajectory has been focused on creating the largest, most devastating bite possible. This was the original king of the Seaway, the apex predator that ruled these waters before the mosasaurs evolved into their truly gigantic forms. As it gets closer, you see its weapons. Its jaws are lined with enormous conical teeth, each one the size of a railroad spike. They are round in cross-section, deeply rooted in the jaw, and designed for one purpose: to punch through flesh and bone, to withstand immense torsional stress, and to turn a struggling victim into a crippled wreck. This is not the needle-fine fish trap of its long-necked cousin. This is heavy artillery. Its four massive flippers propel it through the water not with agility, but with immense locomotive force, the unstoppable chug of a living submarine. The scattered pod of polycotyllids was not fast enough. The pliosaur fixes its gaze on one of the fleeing animals and accelerates, its powerful flipper strokes creating deep, swirling vortices in the water. It closes the distance with shocking speed for an animal so bulky. It doesn't try to outmaneuver its prey. It simply runs it down through sheer brute force propulsion. The impact is sickening. The pliosaur doesn't just bite. It slams into the smaller plesiosaur, its massive skull acting as a sledgehammer, before its jaws clamp down. The thick, conical teeth find their mark, punching through hide and shattering vertebrae with an audible crack that travels through the water. It's an act of overwhelming, disproportionate violence. The scientific evidence for such attacks is unambiguous. Paleontologists have discovered the fossils of other marine reptiles, including plesiosaurs and turtles, bearing the deep, circular puncture wounds that perfectly match the dental pattern of a large pliosaur. Its role as a hypercarnivore is not a matter of speculation. It is written in the bones of its victims. The pliosaur shakes its victim once, a violent thrashing motion, and it is over. It has just asserted its dominance in the most brutal way imaginable. This creature corrects the entire narrative of the plesiosaurs. They were not just a quirky sideshow of long-necked oddities. They were a dynasty that produced some of the most powerful macro-predators the ocean has ever known. Before the reign of Tylosaurus and Mosasaurus, the Pliosaurs were the undisputed tyrants. And even now, with the great mosasaurs on the rise, this living fossil, this holdover from a previous age of terror, is still a king in its own right, a monster whose very presence can make the other hunters flee for their lives. The brutal spectacle of the Pliosaur attack fades as you retreat once more into the deep. You leave the world of reptilian titans behind, sinking into the profound, quiet dark of the mesopelagic zone. The water pressure increases, a heavy, constant squeeze that you feel in your bones. Down here, the sun is a forgotten memory, a faint, silvery ceiling far, far above. The world is a canvas of absolute black, punctuated by the sudden, ghostly light of its inhabitants. This is the Twilight Zone, a kingdom of bioluminescence. Strange, gelatinous creatures drift past, trailing curtains of cold blue light. Tiny crustaceans flash like camera bulbs. It's a silent, slow-motion fireworks display in an endless void. It is in this realm of fleeting light that a new kind of horror emerges. It is not a reptile. It is not a fish. It possesses no bones, no teeth, no armor. It is a ghost in the machine, a predator built from an entirely different blueprint. A large shape, darker than the surrounding water, materializes from the gloom. It is propelled not by fins or flippers, but by a gentle, rhythmic pulsing. As it drifts into a cloud of glowing plankton, its form is illuminated. You are looking at a colossal cephalopod. This is Tusoteuthis. Its appearance is deeply unsettling. It looks like a squid, but it's not. Genetic studies of its closest relatives suggest it was actually a vampiromorph, a member of an ancient lineage whose only living descendant is the strange deep-sea vampire squid. It has 10 arms, not the 8 of an octopus, but they are webbed and lined with suckers, not the hook-laden tentacles of a giant squid. Its body, a muscular mantle, is easily 3 meters or 10 feet long. Buried within this soft, flexible body is its only hard part, a rigid internal shell called a gladius, or pen, which gives its form structure. This creature is a titan of the invertebrate world, a soft-bodied behemoth in a sea of vertebrate killers. And yet, for all its size, it was a crucial part of the food chain, not just at the top. This is a quirky yet vital tidbit of its story. Tusoteuthis was a primary food source for many of the seaway's top predators. The fossilized gladi of these giant cephalopods are frequently discovered in the preserved stomach contents of mosasaurs, plesiosaurs, and large predatory fish. To survive in this ocean, it had to be both large and incredibly fecund, a monster that was also a staple meal for other monsters. You watch it hang in the water, and its most unnerving feature becomes clear. Its eyes. They are enormous, silvery orbs the size of dinner plates, and they are not the flat, dead eyes of a fish or the cold, reptilian stare of a mosasaur. They are complex, intelligent, and they are watching you. There is a palpable sense of awareness, of a mind at work behind those huge lenses. It moves with a startling alien grace. It can hover, drift, or, in an instant, achieve breathtaking speed. With a powerful contraction of its mantle, it expels a jet of water and shoots forward, its arms trailing behind it like a ghostly shroud. It demonstrates its hunting prowess on a large, unsuspecting fish that drifts too close. The attack is a blur of silent, intelligent motion. 2 of its longer arms whip out, the suckers latching onto the fish's scales. The other arms envelop the prey, drawing it instantly toward the center of the writhing mass, where a powerful, parrot-like beak is hidden. There is no bloody struggle, no prolonged chase. Just a swift, ruthlessly efficient capture and kill. The act is over in a second. As the creature disappears back into the inky blackness, you are left with a chill that has nothing to do with the cold of the deep. The reptiles and sharks were terrifying, but they were comprehensible. They were engines of instinct, of hunger, and aggression. The Tusatoothis is different. It feels ancient, eldritch, and unnervingly smart. It is a thinking predator, a ghost of soft flesh and cold calculation, and in many ways, that makes it the most frightening creature you have met yet. The intelligent, ghostly form of the Tusatoothis melts back into the absolute blackness, leaving you with a lingering sense of unease. You descend further, sinking past the realm of the twilight predators into a zone of profound and utter silence. The water here is colder, the pressure immense. The fleeting sparks of bioluminescence become scarcer, leaving you in a near-total void. It is down here, in the crushing dark, that you encounter something that does not just challenge your understanding of this ocean, but your sense of scale itself. Ahead of you, something is occluding the darkness. It is not a creature that you see, but a shape that you perceive by its absence of nothingness. It is a vast, circular void, a hole in the world. As you get closer, your mind struggles to assign an identity to it. It's too big to be an animal, too symmetrical to be a geological feature. It looks like a sunken Ferris wheel, a colossal spiraling structure drifting silently in the abyss. It is only when you are almost upon it that you realize you are looking at a shell. You have found Parapuzosia, the great-great-grandfather of all ammonites, and the undisputed king of the invertebrates. Its size is simply ludicrous, an evolutionary punchline that borders on the absurd. The coiled, ribbed shell before you is easily 3 meters, 10 feet across. If you could stand it on its edge, it would tower over you. It is larger than the tires on a giant mining truck, and it is immensely heavy. While the shell itself was chambered with gas for buoyancy, estimates suggest that the living animal, shell and all, could have weighed over 1.5 tons. This was a creature heavier than a modern car, a living mountain of flesh and calcium carbonate. To this day, Parapuzosia holds the title of the largest known ammonite, and by a significant margin, the heaviest invertebrate of all time. It outweighs even the most massive colossal squid of our modern oceans. Its fossilized remains, titanic stone spirals, have been found in the rocks of Mexico and the United States, the last stony remnants of the ancient seaway. These fossils give us the creature's breathtaking dimensions, but they guard its secrets jealously. We have the house, but we have no idea who lived inside. The soft, tentacled body of the ammonite that inhabited this colossal shell is a complete mystery. Was it a gentle giant, a passive filter feeder that drifted through the ocean, hoovering up clouds of plankton? Or was it an active predator, using its great size to ambush slow-moving fish and crustaceans on the seafloor? We simply do not know. This mystery has fueled a fascinating scientific discussion. The function of its giant size is a complete enigma. Was it an evolutionary response to the ever larger mosasaurs that patrolled the waters above? A case of getting too big to be eaten? Or was it a strange case of deep-sea gigantism occurring in a relatively shallow sea? No one knows for sure. Its existence is a giant, beautiful question mark left in the fossil record. You drift alongside the colossal, silent enigma. It moves with an imperceptible slowness, a majestic, planetary rotation. It is possible that this creature was no monster at all, but a peaceful, slow-moving giant. But in the crushing, absolute darkness of the deep seaway, a 10-foot, spiral-shelled behemoth of unknown intent is, in its own way, the most terrifying thing you can possibly imagine. It is a living riddle, a creature whose sheer scale feels like a violation of some unspoken biological law. It is a ghost of impossible size, a final testament to the fact that Hell's Aquarium was not just a place of violence, but of profound, terrifying, and utterly alien wonder. You leave the colossal ammonite to its silent, eternal drift in the abyss and begin your ascent. You rise through the crushing dark, past the ghostly lights of the twilight zone, and back into the familiar, hazy green of the upper world. The warmth of the sun-drenched water is a welcome relief, and the vibrant activity here feels almost chaotic after the profound stillness of the deep. The schools of fish, the hunting sharks, the ever-present threat of the Xiphactinus. This is the churning, violent engine room of the Seaway. But you are about to meet the undisputed masters of this domain. The sharks are old money, ancient predators who have patrolled the seas for 100 million years. The Pliosaurs are the fallen kings, brutal tyrants of a bygone era. The creatures you are about to meet are the new Dynasty, a lineage of sea lizards that have returned to the water, and in a remarkably short span of evolutionary time have become the most dominant and terrifying marine reptiles the world has ever known. You are entering the age of the mosasaurs. Your introduction to this royal family of killers is not one of the great emperors, but a lesser prince, a common but vital member of the court. A sleek, fast-moving shape, about 6 meters, or 20 feet, long, zips past you in pursuit of a squid. This is Cledastes, one of the smaller and more primitive members of the mosasaur clan. To call it small is, of course, a matter of perspective. At the length of a large great white shark, it is a formidable predator. But compared to the titans that will follow, it is merely the opening act. Its body is slender, almost serpentine, a long muscular tube with 4 relatively small flippers and a long flattened tail. It moves through the water with a distinct eel-like undulation of its entire body. A less efficient but highly agile method of swimming compared to the shark-like tail propulsion its descendants would perfect. You watch it hunt. It is a blur of motion, a whiplash of muscle and teeth. It twists and turns with incredible speed, its body bending into tight arcs to follow the frantic, jet-propelled escape of the squid. It closes the distance, and its long, narrow jaws, filled with sharp, conical teeth, snap shut. It was not a creature of overwhelming power like a pliosaur, but of nimble, reptilian speed. It was the perfect predator for the sunlit shallows, a hunter of fish, squid, and any other small animal that wasn't quick enough to escape its pursuit. Cledastes represents the blueprint, the foundational design from which the great mosasaur tyrants would be built. They were incredibly successful, and their fossils are common throughout the Seaway's deposits. But their success may not have been limited to the open ocean. A quirky and unsettling fringe tidbit from the fossil record suggests that some specimens of Cledastes have been found in deposits that indicate brackish or even freshwater environments. This hints that this agile hunter may have been able to swim upriver from estuaries, at least for short periods. It's a chilling thought. Just when you thought the greatest danger of the coast was the brute force of the Deinosuchus, you now have to imagine a 6-meter hyper-agile sea lizard slithering its way into the rivers and swamps. It's another reminder that in Hell's Aquarium, the danger was not confined to one zone. It was a pervasive, relentless presence that saturated every drop of water, from the deepest abyss to the shallowest shoreline. The agile, eel-like Cledastes represents the ancestral model of the mosasaur, a design for high-speed chases in shallow water. But evolution in the Seaway was a relentless engine of refinement. As you watch the primitive mosasaur disappear, another, more advanced form glides into view. This is Platecarpus, and it is a glimpse into the future of mosasaur domination. At a glance, it seems similar to its smaller cousin. It is slightly larger, around 7 meters long, but its body is more robust, more streamlined. The real innovation, the feature that marks it as the next step up the evolutionary ladder, is its tail. The long, flattened, ribbon-like tail of Clidasts is gone. In its place is a powerful shark-like tail fin, with a distinct fleshy upper and lower lobe. This was a monumental leap forward in locomotion. The inefficient, whole-body undulation was replaced by a system of pure, focused propulsion. Platecarpus no longer swam like an eel. It swam like a shark, its body remaining relatively stiff, while its powerful tail swept back and forth, driving it through the water with incredible efficiency. This made it a masterful cruiser, an animal that could cover vast distances with minimal effort. This new, efficient body plan allowed Platecarpus to conquer a new environment, to exploit a niche that the shallow water hunters couldn't. It became a specialist of the deep. While Clidastus zipped through the sunlit surface waters, scientists believe Platecarpus was a deep-diving predator, a mosasaur of the Twilight Zone. It would cruise effortlessly in the upper ocean before taking deep, plunging dives to hunt in the darker, colder waters below. This theory isn't just a guess. It's backed by some of the most spectacular fossil evidence ever found. Analysis of its bone structure shows it was highly porous, a condition called avascular necrosis, which is common in deep-diving animals like sperm whales that regularly experience decompression. Even more compelling is an almost perfectly preserved specimen of Platecarpus, a true prehistoric mummy that was found with not only skin impressions, but also the fossilized remnants of its internal organs. This incredible fossil revealed the position and shape of its respiratory tract, suggesting it had massive, powerful lungs, an essential piece of equipment for holding its breath on long, deep dives. As you watch it, you see this specialization in action. The Platecarpus cruises near the surface for a few minutes, its head occasionally breaking the water to breathe. Then, with a powerful downward thrust of its new tail, it angles its body and begins to descend. It is not a frantic dash, but a smooth, controlled dive. It passes you, its large, dark eyes perfectly adapted for gathering light in the low visibility depths. You follow it down into the familiar, gloomy world of the mesopelagic zone. Down here, its hunting strategy becomes clear. Its teeth were more slender and fragile than those of other mosasaurs, ill-suited for tackling armored prey. Its diet consisted of the soft-bodied creatures of the deep, the ghostly Tusatuthis, and the schools of deep-water fish that flickered with their own bioluminescent light. The existence of Platecarpus is a crucial chapter in the mosasaur story. It demonstrates that their success wasn't just about becoming bigger and stronger, it was about diversification. They were systematically conquering every available niche in the marine environment. While one branch of the family, like Clidastes, perfected the art of the shallow water ambush, another, like Platecarpus, was evolving into a sleek, efficient, deep-diving specialist. They were spreading out, adapting, and taking over. This was the second wave of the invasion, a move to colonize the vertical column of the entire seaway, from the sunlit surface to the crushing, dark abyss. The age of the true tyrants was about to begin. The diversification of the mosasaurs is a chilling story of conquest, of a single lineage adapting to dominate every corner of this vast inland sea. You've seen the agile shallow water hunter and the efficient deep-diving specialist. But these were just the opening moves, the pawns and bishops in a much grander, more terrifying game. Now, you are about to meet the first of the two great tyrants. You are about to meet the king's brutish, violent, and perpetually angry older brother. A shadow falls over you, a sudden and profound darkening of the water that is not caused by a passing cloud. Something immense is moving above you, and it moves with a swaggering, arrogant confidence that makes every other creature in the vicinity, the fish, the sharks, even a passing Xiphactinus, flee in a silent, unified wave of terror. This is not just a predator, it is a force of nature. A huge, aggressive shape cruises into view. This is Tylosaurus. Its size is the first thing that shocks you. This is a monster on an entirely different scale from what you've seen before. The largest specimens reached lengths of 12 to 15 meters, up to 52 feet. It is as long as a city bus, with a head the size of a refrigerator. It is a true leviathan, a reptilian whale built for murder. Its body is more robust than the earlier mosasaurs, its flippers larger and more powerful, and its tail is a massive, shark-like engine of propulsion. But it is the head, and specifically the snout, that is its most defining and terrifying feature. You get a clear look at it as it passes. The jaws are long and filled with the typical large conical teeth of a macropredator, but the snout extends for a good 2 feet beyond the front teeth, forming a hard, bony, and completely toothless cylinder. It looks like a built-in torpedo tube. This anatomical feature was, for a long time, a mystery. Why would a predator evolve a long, delicate-looking snout that it couldn't use for biting? The answer is as simple as it is brutal. It wasn't delicate at all, and it wasn't for biting. It was a battering ram. The leading theory, backed by compelling forensic evidence from the fossil record, is that Tylosaurus used this bony prow to inflict massive blunt force trauma on its prey. It would identify a target, accelerate to incredible speeds, and simply smash into it. It was a brawler, a street fighter in a world of fences. The snout was heavily reinforced, packed with dense bone and shock-absorbing structures, allowing it to function as a biological sledgehammer. The scientific evidence for this is nothing short of astonishing. Paleontologists have discovered the fossilized skull of a smaller mosasaur, a Cledastes, with a perfectly circular puncture wound and radiating fractures through its brain case. The damage is a perfect match for the snout of a large Tylosaurus. The fossil tells a clear story. The Tylosaurus didn't bite its rival to death. It rammed it so hard it smashed its skull. You have just met the undisputed bully of the Western Interior Seaway. Its aggression was not reserved for rivals. It was its primary personality trait. The evidence for its hyper-aggressive nature comes from its fossilized stomach contents, which read like a who's who of the Cretaceous marine world. Inside the fossilized torsos of Tylosaurus, scientists have found the remains of Plesiosaurs, large sea turtles, several different kinds of sharks, the giant flightless seabird Hesperornis, and most tellingly of all, the chewed-up bones of other smaller mosasaurs. It ate everything. It attacked everything. Its strategy was simple, violent, and effective. If it moved, it was a potential meal. If it was too big to swallow, it would smash it into smaller, more manageable pieces. The existence of Tylosaurus fundamentally changed the rules of survival in this ocean. It wasn't enough to be fast, or armored, or even a predator in your own right. You had to be able to survive a head-on collision with a 15-meter battering ram. The monstrous ram-headed Tylosaurus is more than just a biological battering ram. It's a highly sophisticated sensory platform, an intelligent hunter whose aggression is guided by a suite of senses perfectly honed for this marine battlefield. To truly understand this creature is to look past its brute force and try to perceive the world as it did, to swim for a moment inside the mind of a tyrant. Its most critical sense was likely its vision. As it turns its massive head, you can see that its eyes are not positioned on the sides like those of a fish, but are angled slightly forward. This placement gave it a crucial advantage: binocular vision. Like an eagle or a human, it could perceive a single three-dimensional image of the world in front of it, allowing for superb depth perception. In the hazy, often murky water of the seaway, the ability to accurately judge the distance to a fast-moving plesiosaur or a darting shark was the difference between a successful hunt and a wasted, energy-expensive lunge. Its eyes were also enormous, capable of gathering a great deal of light, which suggests it was just as comfortable hunting in the dim twilight of a stormy day or in the deeper, darker sections of the water column as it was in the bright, sunlit shallows. But vision alone is not enough in a world where prey can be hidden by clouds of silt or the inky defenses of a cephalopod. Like modern snakes and monitor lizards, its closest living relatives, Tylosaurus had another, more subtle way of tasting its environment. You watch as a long, forked, snake-like tongue flicks out from its mouth, sampling the water. It then retracts the tongue, inserting the forked tips into a specialized sensory organ on the roof of its mouth called the Jacobson's organ. This is not tasting in the way you or I would understand it. This is directional chemical analysis. By detecting minute chemical trails left by passing prey, the scent of blood, waste, or even the unique chemical signature of a terrified animal, it could track its victims through the water with uncanny accuracy. The forked tongue allowed it to determine the direction of the trail, turning its entire head into a kind of reptilian radar, constantly scanning for the scent of its next meal. This combination of sharp, stereoscopic vision and a directional sense of smell made it an incredibly effective hunter. But it was its aggression, its sheer, relentless violence, that truly defined its existence. The fossil record of Tylosaurus is a brutal catalogue of a life lived at full throttle. Their bones are riddled with pathologies, evidence of disease, injury, and trauma. Paleontologists have found specimens with healed, broken ribs, jaws that were shattered and then crudely fused back together, and, most tellingly, the embedded teeth of other equally large Tylosaurus. They fought, and they fought often. Their bodies are the scarred, battered chassis of lifelong warriors. This raises a fascinating and ongoing scientific question: whether their aggression was primarily territorial, a fierce defense of a chosen hunting ground, for mating rights, with males engaging in colossal brawls for dominance, or simply because they were opportunistic, indiscriminately violent killers is a topic of intense study. The evidence points to all three. They were clearly territorial, they undoubtedly fought for mates, and their stomach contents prove they would attack anything they thought they could kill. The picture that emerges is one of a creature dialed permanently to 11, a hyper-aggressive predator whose default setting was violence. As it glides past, its scarred hide and the ancient healed fracture line visible on its jaw tell a story of survival in a world of constant, brutal conflict, a conflict that it itself was largely responsible for creating. The scarred, battle-hardened Tylosaurus cruises through its domain with an air of absolute authority. It is the bully, the brawler, the undisputed king of this violent sea. But then, its behavior shifts. The confident, swaggering motion of its tail slows. Its massive head lifts slightly, its forked tongue flicking out, tasting a new and unwelcome chemical signature in the water. The king is nervous. Every other creature in this ocean flees from the Tylosaurus. But the Tylosaurus, for the first time, looks like it wants to flee from something else. The tyrant has sensed a titan. A new presence resolves out of the hazy distance, a shape that makes the colossal Tylosaurus seem almost ordinary. It is a creature of impossible scale and power, the final and most perfect product of the Mosasaur dynasty. This is the true ruler, the emperor to whom even the kings must bow. This is Mosasaurus. It is, quite simply, bigger. Where the largest Tylosaurus topped out at around 15 meters, a fully grown Mosasaurus could reach a staggering 17 meters, or 56 feet, in length. But it wasn't just longer, it was more massive, more powerfully built in every dimension. Its chest was broader, its muscles thicker, its skull more heavily reinforced. If the Tylosaurus was the brutish, unpredictable battering ram, the Mosasaurus was the finely tuned, perfectly engineered cutting weapon. It was the difference between a war club and a guillotine. Its entire philosophy of predation was different. It did not rely on the chaotic, blunt force trauma of a high-speed ram. Its head was not designed for that. It was designed for a single purpose: to deliver the most powerful and lethally effective bite the oceans have ever known. As it glides closer, you see its weaponry, and it is a significant upgrade. Its teeth are not the simple conical spikes of its relatives. They are massive, slightly curved, and distinctly prismatic, with two opposing razor-sharp cutting edges, like the blade of a dagger. These were teeth designed not just to puncture, but to slice. They were instruments of dismemberment, capable of shearing through the thickest hide, the strongest muscle, and even the heaviest bone. Tylosaurus might cripple its prey, but Mosasaurus would simply cut it in half. And the horror doesn't end there. As it opens its colossal jaws, you see a terrifying and distinctly reptilian feature: a second set of teeth. Latching onto the bones of its palate are smaller, hooked pterygoid teeth. This was its insurance policy. Once a victim was seized in those primary jaws, these secondary teeth would dig in, ensuring that the struggling prey could only move in one direction: backward into the gullet. There was no escape. The jaws were a one-way gate to oblivion. This was the ultimate expression of mosasaur evolution. It was the perfect combination of size, power, and specialized weaponry. It was faster than a pliosaur, more powerful than a shark, and more intelligent and heavily armed than any other creature in the sea. It was the apex of the ape's predators, a living warship in a world of pirates. The reign of Tylosaurus was an age of chaotic violence. The reign of Mosasaurus would be an age of absolute, unchallenged, and terrifying order. The sheer presence of the Mosasaurus is a weapon in itself, an aura of supreme power that broadcasts its status as the undisputed ruler. But this authority isn't just a matter of size. It's a function of pure, quantifiable, and terrifying biomechanics. The creature is a killing machine, and its skull is the engine of its lethality. Let's talk about the bite. Computer models based on the robust construction of its skull and the massive attachment points for its jaw muscles give us a chilling glimpse into its power. The estimates for its bite force range from 13,000 to 16,000 pounds per square inch, PS1. To put that number in perspective, a saltwater crocodile, the modern champion of reptilian bites, maxes out at around 3,700 psi. A Tyrannosaurus rex likely bit down with around 12,000 psi. This means the Mosasaurus wasn't just a powerful biter. It likely possessed the strongest bite of any animal that has ever lived. It was a force of nature concentrated into the razor-sharp edges of its teeth, a bite capable of shearing through solid bone as if it were soft cartilage. But the design was even more ingenious and more horrifying than sheer force alone. Like its snake relatives, the Mosasaurus had what is known as a kinetic skull. Its lower jaws were not fused together at the chin by a solid piece of bone. Instead, they were connected by flexible ligaments, and the jawbones themselves had a double hinge, an extra joint halfway along their length. This meant it could dramatically expand its gape, bowing its jaws outward to swallow prey or chunks of flesh that were wider than its own head. It was a reptilian trait, perfected on a monstrous scale, allowing it to dismember and consume the largest animals in the sea with shocking efficiency. This incredible weaponry dictated its hunting strategy, which was likely a polar opposite to the chaotic brawling of the Tylosaurus. The ram-headed mosasaur was a pursuer, a bruiser that bludgeoned its prey into submission. The Mosasaurus, on the other hand, was likely an ambush predator, a calculated assassin that relied on stealth, timing, and a single unrecoverable blow. You can imagine it, lurking in the hazy middle depths, its dark body perfectly camouflaged in the gloom. It would wait, patient and motionless, for a large plesiosaur or a younger mosasaur to pass overhead. Then a single explosive burst of acceleration from its powerful tail. It would rocket upward, not to ram, but to position its jaws. The attack would be a single, catastrophic bite delivered to the torso of its victim. The blade-like teeth would slice through muscle, smash ribs, and rupture internal organs. Then, just as quickly as it attacked, it would release its grip and retreat, its work done. The prey, mortally wounded and bleeding profusely from an enormous, gaping wound, would be left to die, too crippled to fight back, and too damaged to escape. It's fitting that this creature, the ultimate prehistoric sea monster, was also one of the very first to be discovered. The first scientifically described specimen, Mosasaurus hoffmanni, was unearthed in a limestone quarry in the Netherlands in the 1760s. Long before the word dinosaur was ever uttered, this colossal jawbone puzzled the naturalists of the day. It was proof of a creature that no longer existed, a key piece of evidence that helped to shatter the old ideas of a static, unchanging world and usher in the modern sciences of paleontology and geology. In a very real sense, the Mosasaurus was the first monster to emerge from the abyss of deep time, the fossil that first told us that the world was far older and far more terrifying than we had ever imagined. The reign of Mosasaurus was absolute, a period of unchallenged tyranny. But no emperor rules alone. The true strength of the Mosasaur dynasty lay not just in its colossal blade-toothed ruler, but in the extended royal family of specialized assassins, enforcers, and executioners that supported its reign. For every major predatory niche in the Western Interior Seaway, there was a mosasaur perfectly and terrifyingly adapted to exploit it. They had all the bases covered. You've met the slicer, Mosasaurus, and the rammer, Tylosaurus. Now you meet the crusher. A slightly smaller but incredibly robust mosasaur appears, its body built like a bulldog. This is Prognathodon. At around 10 meters long, it wasn't the biggest member of the family, but it may have been the most powerfully built. Its skull was unusually short, wide, and heavily reinforced with bone, a design that screamed brute force. Its most telling feature was its teeth. They were not the sharp, piercing cones of most of its relatives, but massive, barrel-shaped cylinders of enamel, deeply rooted in its powerful jaws. These were not teeth for slicing flesh. They were anvils, designed for a single, brutal purpose: pulverizing armor. Prognathodon was the mosasaur that looked at the giant, car-sized turtle Archelon and the colossal, 10-foot ammonite Parapusosia, not as impenetrable fortresses, but as lunch. It was a specialized durophage, a hard-shell cracker operating on a monstrous scale. While a Tylosaurus might have tried to smash a turtle's shell with its snout, Prognathodon would simply bite down, and its powerful jaws and robust teeth would turn the shell into a mosaic of shattered fragments. It was the heavy-duty can opener of the Cretaceous. But even this level of specialization could be taken to a further extreme. You see another, even more bizarre mosasaur cruising near the seafloor. This is Globidens. It's smaller still, perhaps only 6 meters long. But its dental battery is one of the strangest in the history of life. Its teeth are not cones or barrels, they are almost perfect spheres, like a mouthful of reptilian golf balls or stone cannonballs. This was the ultimate in shell-crushing technology. Globidans likely specialized in eating the toughest, most heavily armored prey on the seafloor, the giant, thick-shelled inocoramid clams and smaller, harder ammonites that other predators couldn't touch. Its teeth were the perfect shape to concentrate immense force onto a single point on a curved shell, causing it to fail catastrophically. This incredible diversity is the final, terrifying piece of the puzzle. The mosasaurs didn't just produce one or two successful predators. They produced a specialist for every single job. Did you need to slice a giant plesiosaur in half? There was a Mosasaurus for that. Did you need to chase down and ram a smaller rival into submission? Call a Tylosaurus. Was a giant armored turtle on the menu? Send in the heavy-crushing Prognathodon. Was the seafloor littered with impenetrable clams? The specialized globidans had it covered. They had achieved total market saturation of the apex predator niche. There was no gap in the food web, no opening for a rival dynasty of sharks or pliosaurs to gain a foothold. The mosasaurs had an answer for everything, and that answer was always a different arrangement of bone and teeth, but the same ultimate, violent conclusion. Their reign was not an accident. It was a total and complete conquest. You are no longer a participant, but a silent, unseen observer, a ghost drifting through a day in the life of this ancient, violent sea. The hazy Cretaceous sun climbs into the sky, its light turning the shallow coastal waters a brilliant tropical turquoise. This is the morning rush hour. On a muddy sandbar, a colossal Deinosuchus basks, its armored back absorbing the heat, its immense body a living statue of potential energy. It is waiting. Out over the water, a flock of pteranodons soars on the warm updrafts. One of them peels away, diving for a fish. It's a scene that has played out 1,000,000 times, but today it ends differently. A dark, sleek shape erupts from the water, a Squalicorax, and the pterosaur's morning hunt becomes its last, its broken form dragged beneath the waves. The crow sharks are the ever-present opportunists, the morning shift of the cleanup crew. By midday, the sun is high and hot, its rays penetrating deep into the open ocean. The seaway is a churning, chaotic metropolis of life and death. You see a large carcass, perhaps the remains of the turtle from yesterday, being torn apart by a solitary, massive Cretoxyrhina. The Ginsu Shark feeds with a terrifying efficiency, its huge blade-like teeth shearing off 100-pound chunks of flesh. Not far away, a school of large, silvery fish flashes in the sunlight, only for a brutish Xiphactinus to plow through their ranks, its cavernous mouth inhaling one of its smaller cousins in a single violent gulp. But it is not all grim violence. A pod of dolphin-like dolichorynchops plays in the waves, their four flippered bodies leaping from the water. They are hunting a school of squid, but their movements have a joyful, coordinated grace that feels like a rare moment of light in this dark world. This is the seaway at its peak activity, a constant swirling dance of predator and prey under the high sun. As the afternoon wears on, the light begins to slant, the shadows lengthen, and the mood of the ocean shifts. You descend into the deeper, quieter water, the world of twilight. Down here, the pace is slower, the hunt's more deliberate. You see a great Elasmosaurus, its immense body a dark shadow, its tiny head a pale lure at the end of its impossible neck. It stalks a school of fish from below, a silent, patient angler in the gloom. The quiet is shattered by a sudden, brutal act of violence. A mid-sized plesiosaur perhaps one of the dolichorinchops from the playful pod, strays too deep. A 15-meter Tylosaurus appears from the murk, not to bite, but to ram. The impact is a sickening thud that you feel through the water, a collision of terrible force that leaves the smaller reptile crippled and stunned. An easy meal for the Seaway's greatest bully. The sun finally touches the western horizon, painting the clouds in fiery shades of orange and red. The surface of the water becomes a mirror of liquid gold. The day is ending, and the true emperor makes his appearance. A colossal head, 17 meters of reptilian perfection behind it, breaks the surface with a quiet, powerful surge. It is a giant Mosasaurus. It is not hunting. It is not fighting. It is simply rising to breathe, its massive form silhouetted against the dying sun. Every creature in the water gives it a wide, respectful berth. The sharks, the fish, even the other mosasaurs, all seem to understand that this is the master of the house, the final word in a sea of violent arguments. Its presence is a quiet, unambiguous declaration. The day may have belonged to the lesser hunters, but the night and the ocean itself belongs to the king. The image of the solitary emperor, the great Mosasaurus, silhouetted against the setting sun, raises a fundamental question. In a life seemingly defined by relentless, brutal conflict, was there ever a moment for anything else? Beyond the hunt, beyond the fight for dominance, was there a softer side to these sea monsters? How did they create the next generation of tyrants in a world so ruthlessly efficient at extinguishing life? The first and most obvious answer might be that they did it like modern sea turtles, hauling their great bodies onto a beach under the cover of darkness to deposit a clutch of leathery eggs. But the mosasaur body was not built for land. Its flippers were perfect hydrofoils, but they were useless for supporting its immense weight against the crushing pull of gravity. Any mosasaur that beached itself would have been stranded, a helpless, dying giant. The logistics were impossible, and the fossil record confirms it. The answer to their reproductive puzzle was far more elegant, and far more revolutionary for a reptile. They had severed their final tie to the terrestrial world. They gave live birth. The scientific evidence for this is now conclusive. Paleontologists have found several fossils of mosasaurs, as well as their plesiosaur cousins, with the small, perfectly formed skeletons of juveniles preserved within the mother's body cavity. These are not the remains of a last meal. The tiny skeletons are oriented correctly for birth, and they show no signs of being digested. Like modern whales and dolphins, these great sea lizards were viviparous. They carried their young inside them and delivered them directly into the water, alive and swimming. This adaptation was the key to their complete and total conquest of the marine environment. You can imagine the scene. A great female mosasaurus finding a quiet, secluded patch of the open ocean. The birth itself would have been a moment of extreme vulnerability, and it would have followed a pattern common to almost all air-breathing marine mammals today. The young would have been born tail first. This is a crucial, quirky tidbit of physiology. A head-first birth underwater is a death sentence. The infant would instinctively try to breathe and would drown before it was fully born. By emerging tail first, the baby remains connected to its mother's oxygen supply via the umbilical cord until the very last moment, when a final push sends it free and its own powerful swimming instincts can drive it toward its first breath of air at the surface. This raises another, more profound question, one that the fossil record has yet to definitively answer. What happened next? Scholarly debate still rages over whether mosasaurs were solitary parents or if they exhibited some form of social behavior. Were the young abandoned to their fate, a tiny replica of the emperor left to fend for itself in a sea of monsters? Or did the mother stay with her offspring, forming a protective bond, a family pod like a modern orca? Some rare fossil assemblages show multiple mosasaurs of different sizes that died together, hinting at possible group activity. But the evidence is thin, leaving us to wonder. Whatever the answer, the life of a newborn mosasaur would have been one of constant peril. Even the child of a 17-meter titan would have been born at a fraction of its adult size. A baby mosasaurus might have been 3 or 4 meters long, a giant by human standards, but a perfect bite-sized meal for a cruising Cretoxyrhina, a hungry Xiphactinus, or worse, another larger mosasaur, even a Tylosaurus that wouldn't hesitate to cannibalize the offspring of its rival. From the very first breath, the young tyrant's life would have been a desperate race for size, a constant struggle to eat and grow before it was eaten itself. In Hell's Aquarium, even royalty was not safe. You've seen the monsters. You've witnessed their hunts, their fights, their impossibly strange lives. But to truly understand this place, you must try to perceive it as they did. For a human, the Seaway is a world of muted sensations. Your vision is limited by the murky water, your hearing is distorted, and your senses of smell and touch are virtually useless. But for the creatures that lived here, this ocean was a rich, vibrant tapestry of sensory information, a constant flood of data that they processed with an array of biological equipment far more sophisticated than your own. Let's start with sound. We call the deep a silent world, but that is a profound misconception. Water is a fantastic conductor of sound, far better than air. Every movement, every impact, every struggle created a sonic signature that traveled for miles. The slow, powerful sweep of a mosasaurus's tail wasn't just a motion. It was a low-frequency pressure wave, a deep, rhythmic thrum that every creature with an inner ear would feel in its bones. The high-speed attack of a Cretoxyrhina was a sudden, sharp spike in the acoustic pressure, a ripping sound that signaled a kill. The crunch of a Tycadus crushing a giant clam on the seafloor was a clear, percussive broadcast, an advertisement of its location and activity. Scientific evidence from the fossilized inner ear bones of these marine reptiles suggests they were particularly attuned to these low-frequency sounds, the telltale vibrations of large bodies moving through the water. Then there was smell, or more accurately, taste. The water was a chemical soup, a library of information waiting to be read. You've seen the forked tongue of the mosasaurs, a reptilian supersense that gave them a directional, three-dimensional image of the chemical landscape. But the sharks had a different, though equally effective, system. The olfactory bulb in a modern great white shark's brain is enormous, accounting for a huge portion of its neural processing power, allowing it to detect a single drop of blood in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. The Ginsu Shark and the crow shark were undoubtedly just as sensitive. A wounded animal didn't just leave a visual trail of blood. It released a plume of chemical information, a scent highway that these predators could lock onto and follow for miles, their sensitive nostrils guiding them unerringly to the source. But perhaps the most alien and important sense was touch, or rather a form of remote touch that is almost magical to us. The sharks and the bony fish like Xiphactinus possessed a lateral line, a series of pressure-sensitive pores and canals running along the sides of their bodies. This system allowed them to feel the water around them. They could detect the minute, panicked vibrations of a single struggling fish hundreds of feet away. They could feel the pressure wave of a larger predator approaching from behind, long before they could see or hear it. It was a sixth sense, a way of seeing with their skin, of feeling the shape and texture of the water itself. Scientists still debate how sensitive the skin receptors on mosasaurs were, and whether they, too, possessed a pressure-sensing system integrated into their scales, something akin to a lateral line. Now, put it all together. Imagine you are a Tylosaurus on patrol. Your huge eyes scan the hazy green for movement. Your forked tongue tastes the water, detecting the faint chemical trail of a sea turtle that passed by an hour ago. You feel a low-frequency rumble to your left and identify it as a large pliosaur, a potential rival to be avoided. Then, your skin receptors detect a sudden, frantic, high-frequency vibration from below, a fish in distress. You have built a complete, multi-layered, real-time map of your environment using senses you and I can barely comprehend. To survive in Hell's Aquarium, it wasn't enough to have the biggest teeth or the strongest bite. You had to be the best at processing this invisible world of sound, chemistry, and pressure. You had to be the smartest monster in the sea of monsters. You pull back from the world of the individual, from the hunter and the hunted, from the intimate, terrifying details of the kill. You ascend, rising higher and higher, until the great Mosasaurus is just a speck, and the entire seaway is laid out below you, a vast, murky waterway splitting a continent in two. The question is no longer what, but why? Why here? Why did this specific body of water, in this specific time, become such a perfect factory for nightmares? What was the secret recipe for Hell's Aquarium? It wasn't a single ingredient, but a perfect, unrepeatable storm of geological and climatic coincidences. First, you must understand the vessel itself. The Western Interior Seaway was not a true ocean basin, not a deep, abyssal rift between tectonic plates. It was an epicontinental sea. For millions of years, the immense weight of the forming Rocky Mountains to the west was causing the center of the North American continent to buckle and sag, a process called tectonic downwarping. The planet's climate was in a hothouse phase, with no polar ice caps and sea levels hundreds of feet higher than they are today. This is the critical geological fact. The high global sea level allowed the ocean to flood into this vast, shallow depression, creating a sea that was, in many places, only a few hundred feet deep. It wasn't an ocean, it was a continent-sized puddle. This shallowness meant that sunlight could penetrate deep into the water column, fueling life from the surface to the sea floor. Second, there was the heat. The Late Cretaceous was a world of high atmospheric carbon dioxide, creating a powerful greenhouse effect. The global average temperature was significantly warmer than today. This meant the waters of the seaway were consistently warm and tropical, almost like bath water, from the Gulf of Mexico all the way to the Arctic. This was perfect for reptiles, whose metabolisms thrived in the heat, allowing them to grow to colossal sizes. But it was also the perfect temperature for fueling a hyper-productive ecosystem. The final and perhaps most important ingredient was the secret sauce that was being poured in from the west. The mountain ranges forming along the coast of Laramidia, the Sevier and Laramide orogenes, were young, jagged, and eroding rapidly. Every rainstorm washed a rich, thick slurry of sediment, phosphorus, nitrogen, and other minerals down from the bare rock of these new mountains and into the western edge of the seaway. This constant nutrient-rich runoff was like pouring an industrial-grade fertilizer into a shallow, sunlit pond. This is the recipe for the perfect cauldron. The shallow seaway was the pot. The intense Cretaceous sun was the heat. And the nutrient runoff from the mountains was the stock. The result was a phytoplankton bloom of unimaginable scale, a thick green soup of microscopic life that formed the base of the food web. This soup supported a staggering biomass of zooplankton and small filter feeders. This, in turn, supported an unbelievable population of ammonites, squid, and small fish. This vast cloud of prey then supported the larger fish, the sharks, the plesiosaurs, and finally, the mosasaur tyrants. It was an incredibly efficient pyramid of life, built on the richest possible foundation. This unique set of conditions created what some have called an evolutionary predator trap. It was an environment so rich in food that it drew in predators and supercharged their evolution. The pressure wasn't just to find a meal, it was to compete for an endless buffet. The result was an arms race that rewarded gigantism and specialization. Scientists still debate which of these factors, the warmth, the shallowness, or the nutrient runoff, was the single most important driver of the seaway's hyperproductivity. But the consensus is that the combination of all three created a fleeting, perfect moment in Earth's history for the generation of monsters. It wasn't just an ocean. It was a geological accident, a perfect storm that brewed for 30 million years, and the final product was the deadliest sea the world has ever known. The perfect cauldron you've just witnessed, the geological accident that brewed for 30 million years, was never meant to last. Like all perfect moments in the deep history of the planet, it was temporary, a fleeting alignment of sea level, climate, and geology. The same forces that created this monster-filled paradise were already conspiring to destroy it. For millions of years before the sky fell, Hell's Aquarium was already dying a slow, quiet death. The golden age of monsters was coming to an end. The Western Interior Seaway was never static. It was a breathing, pulsing body of water, its shorelines advancing and retreating in long, slow cycles that lasted for millennia. But underneath these smaller fluctuations, a larger, more terminal trend was at work. The seaway was shrinking. This is a simple, mainstream geological fact. The same tectonic forces that were pushing up the Rocky Mountains to the west, the Laramide orogeny, were also causing the entire continental interior to slowly rebound and rise. The immense weight that had once caused the land to sag was being lifted, and as the continent rose, it was pushing the shallow ocean out. The water was being steadily, inexorably drained back into the great global ocean. From the perspective of a single mosasaur, the change would have been imperceptible. But over thousands of generations, the consequences were profound. Vast stretches of open ocean that had once been hundreds of feet deep were becoming shallow, sun-choked sandbars. Coastlines that had been stable for 1 million years were now 100 miles further east. The world was literally shrinking beneath the fins of its inhabitants. Habitats were becoming fragmented, cutting off populations from one another. The endless open-water hunting grounds of the great Mosasaurus were becoming smaller, more constrained, forcing the Titans into ever-increasing competition for a dwindling territory. The ecosystem was showing signs of this stress long before the final cataclysm. The incredible diversity of life was beginning to wane. The fossil record shows a distinct faunal turnover in the last few million years of the Cretaceous. Some of the great predator guilds, like the mighty Pliosaurs, had already declined and vanished from these waters, their throne usurped by the newly ascendant mosasaurs. The ecosystem was dynamic, but it was a dynamism driven by decline, a desperate reshuffling of the deck on a sinking ship. The very richness of the nutrient cycle, once the source of the seaway's strength, may have become a weakness. Some scientists have found evidence of massive algal blooms and anoxic events in the later stages of the seaway, suggesting that the water was becoming stagnant and choked, a beautiful but poisoned paradise. The mood of the seaway was changing from peak terror to a low, humming sense of foreboding. The monsters were still here, their power undiminished. A Tylosaurus was still a Tylosaurus, but the world that had made them, the vast, rich, endless ocean, was vanishing. The magic was leaking out of the cauldron. The great reptiles were the undisputed masters of a kingdom that was slowly turning to dust, the emperors of a shrinking realm. They were unaware that their slow geological demise was about to be rendered completely irrelevant by a far faster, far more violent end arriving from the cold, empty darkness of space. The slow, grinding, geological death of the Seaway was the expected end, the peaceful fading into old age. But the planet had a different, far more violent conclusion in mind. The final chapter of this world would not be written by erosion and tectonics, but by a 6-mile-wide rock traveling at 40,000 miles per hour. 66 million years ago, on an otherwise ordinary day, the sky fell. You are floating in the middle of the Seaway, a vast expanse of water under a hazy, late Cretaceous sun. A giant Mosasaurus cruises in the depths below. A flock of seabirds circles overhead. Everything is as it has been for millions of years. Then, it happens. To the southeast, in the direction of the Tethys Sea and the modern-day Gulf of Mexico, the sky ignites. It is not a flash of lightning. It is a silent, searing, impossible light, as if a second sun has been born, a sun that is 1 billion times too bright. It is so brilliant, it vaporizes the clouds, turning the entire southeastern horizon into a wall of pure white fire that burns your eyes even when you look away. For a few terrifying seconds, there is only the light and an unnatural silence. Then, the heat arrives. It is not the familiar warmth of the sun. It is a thermal pulse, an invisible wave of infrared radiation traveling at the speed of light. The surface of the ocean begins to hiss and steam, instantly boiling into a thick, scalding fog. The leaves on the distant coastal trees curl, blacken, and ignite. Any creature on the surface is cooked in an instant. The second wave of the attack is even more surreal. The sky, which had been seared white, now turns a blood red. High above the atmosphere, the ejecta from the impact, trillions of tons of vaporized rock and asteroid, is condensing into tiny sand grain-sized droplets of molten glass. They are tektites, or spherals, and they are now beginning their fiery descent. It starts to rain, but it is not a rain of water. It is a rain of fire. The superheated glass spherals hit the water with a sound like 1 billion sizzling embers, turning the surface into a scalding, effervescent bath. The water temperature skyrockets, and the ocean itself becomes a trap. This is not a dramatic reconstruction. It is a forensic reality. At a fossil site in North Dakota called Tanis, which was once on the shore of a river flowing into the Seaway, paleontologists have found a mass grave of fish that died on that very day. The scientific evidence is irrefutable. Their gills are clogged with the tiny, glassy impact spherals. They were breathing in the fallout of the apocalypse. They were alive to witness the end of the world, their last moments preserved in stone, proving that the devastating effects of the impact arrived here, 1,000 miles from ground zero, within mere minutes to hours. And then, after the light, the heat, and the fiery rain, the sound arrives. It has been traveling for 1/4 of an hour, a shockwave moving through the crust and the air. It hits not as a sound, but as a physical blow, a deafening, earth-shattering boom that is louder than any volcanic eruption, any earthquake. The concussion wave is so powerful, it pulverizes the delicate swim bladders of fish and ruptures the eardrums and lungs of the great marine reptiles. Even the mighty Mosasaurus is left stunned, disoriented, its senses shattered by a force it cannot comprehend. The rulers of the Seaway have been deafened and stunned, floating in a boiling, poisoned sea under a sky that is raining fire. And the worst is yet to come. The sound of the apocalypse fades, replaced by a ringing silence and the hiss of the fiery rain. The stunned, scalded survivors of Hell's Aquarium float aimlessly in a world that has been turned inside out. But the Impact's assault is not over. It has merely paused to gather its strength for the final, physical blow. The kinetic energy that the asteroid delivered to the planet's crust did not simply vanish. It was converted into the greatest and most terrible wave in the history of life. And it is coming for them. The first sign is not a wave, but its opposite. The ocean itself seems to take a deep, shuddering breath. The water level begins to drop, slowly at first, then with an accelerating, terrifying speed. The sea is being drawn back, pulled southeast toward the great wound in the planet's crust. It is a phenomenon known as a tsunami drawback, but on a scale that defies imagination. Vast stretches of the shallow seaway that have been underwater for millions of years are suddenly exposed to the toxic, superheated air. The seafloor itself, the clam beds, the muddy plains, the domain of the Tycadus, is now the ground, littered with the flopping, suffocating bodies of a billion marine creatures. The great reptiles, the sharks, the giant fish, are all caught in the inexorable pull, dragged backward into a chaotic, churning mass of bodies and debris. Then, on the southeastern horizon, it appears. It is not a wave in the way you understand it. It is a moving cliff face, a wall of water that scrapes the soot-blackened sky. It is the mega tsunami, a surge of displaced ocean hundreds of feet high, traveling at the speed of a jet airliner. And it is not made of clean, blue water. It is a churning, boiling slurry of mud, sand, shattered rock, and the incinerated remains of the forests that once lined the Gulf Coast. It is a liquid avalanche of unimaginable size and power. You watch as the wall of water slams into the seaway. The sound is not a crash. It is a sustained, deafening roar, the sound of a whole ocean being broken and remade in an instant. The wave scours the basin, its turbulent front edge acting like a giant liquid sand blaster, stripping the seafloor bare and churning everything, sediment, bone, and flesh, into a single, homogeneous, deathly soup. Even a 17-meter Mosasaurus, the undisputed emperor of this world, a creature of almost unimaginable power, is rendered completely and utterly helpless. It is not a swimmer in a storm. It is a grain of sand in a rock tumbler. The immense force of the water seizes its colossal body, tossing and turning it, snapping its powerful spine, shattering its bones against the thousands of tons of rock and debris carried within the wave. Its strength, its intelligence, its lifetime of predatory perfection, all are rendered meaningless. It is an execution on a planetary scale, a geological reset button. The fight for survival is irrelevant when the battlefield itself is being vaporized. The wave doesn't just pass over. It fills the entire basin, sloshing back and forth for hours, a chaotic, continent-sized washing machine that grinds the dead and the dying into oblivion. Hell's Aquarium, the product of 30 million years of slow, patient evolution, has been flash-sterilized. The dynasty of the sea lizards, the reign of the great sharks, the strange world of the ancient cephalopods, it has all been erased in a single brutal afternoon. The water, once the source of all life here, has become the instrument of its total and final annihilation. The great wave has receded. The violent, churning energy has dissipated, leaving behind a world of profound and terrifying stillness. The water of the seaway is a vast, black mirror, its surface as smooth and dead as polished obsidian. It reflects a sky that is also black, not with the familiar darkness of night, but with a thick, suffocating blanket of soot, dust, and vaporized rock that has been hurled into the highest reaches of the atmosphere. The sun is gone. It is not eclipsed. It has been erased from the sky, a forgotten memory in a world that has been plunged into a perpetual chilling twilight. This is the beginning of the impact winter. The tropical heat that made the seaway a paradise for giant reptiles has vanished. The planet's thermostat abruptly switched off. A deep, unnatural cold begins to seep into the water, a cold that the remaining creatures, evolved for a world of constant warmth, have no defense against. Then it begins to rain. It is not a cleansing rain. It is a slow, black, greasy drizzle, a toxic cocktail falling from a poisoned sky. The asteroid didn't just hit the Earth. It vaporized a huge deposit of sulfur-rich rock in the Yucatan Peninsula. Now that sulfur is combining with water in the atmosphere to form clouds of sulfuric acid. The rain that falls is not just water and soot. It is a dilute acid, sharp and corrosive. It burns the gills of any fish that have survived the initial cataclysms and begins to dissolve the delicate shells of the few remaining ammonites and plankton. But the true extinction, the great dying, is happening on a scale you cannot see. It is the silent, invisible catastrophe that will unmake this entire world. The phytoplankton, the microscopic single-celled plants that formed the vast green base of the entire food web, are dying. In the sunless gloom, they can no longer photosynthesize. This collapse of photosynthesis was the primary killing mechanism of the KPG extinction. The engine of all life in the oceans has seized, and the consequences cascade upward with breathtaking speed. The zooplankton that grazed on the phytoplankton starve first, their tiny dying bodies clouding the water. The small fish and crustaceans that ate the zooplankton starve next. The ammonites, the squid, the belemnites. Everything that formed the great middle class of this marine metropolis is now dying in the dark. The immense, vibrant biomass of the seaway is now a floating, putrefying mass of decay. The decomposition of trillions of dead organisms consumes the remaining oxygen in the water, creating vast anoxic dead zones. The seaway has become a ghost of itself, a stagnant, stratified pond of poison and death. The only signs of life in the geological record immediately following this event are what scientists call the fern spike, a layer of rock dominated almost exclusively by the spores of disaster opportunist ferns on land. A similar thing happens here. The complex ecosystem is gone, leaving only the hardiest microbes and scavengers to feast on the endless detritus. The most profound change, however, is the silence. The world that was once a symphony of low-frequency rumbles, of high-frequency splashes, of the crunch of bone and shell, is now utterly quiet. The powerful thrum of a mosasaurus tail is gone. The chaotic sound of a feeding frenzy is a distant memory. The cries of the great seabirds are absent from the poisoned air. There is only the soft, rhythmic patter of the black, acidic rain on the dead, glassy surface of the water. Scientists still argue about the exact duration of this impact winter, whether it was a few years of absolute darkness or a century of deep twilight. But for the world you are in now, the effect is total. You are drifting through a planetary scale graveyard. This is how the Age of Monsters truly ends. Not in a glorious final battle of titans, but here, in the cold, the dark, and the crushing, absolute silence of a world that has been utterly and completely unmade. The great, silent, poisoned sea did not last forever. The slow, inexorable rise of the continent, a process that had begun millions of years before the impact, continued its patient work. Over the next few million years, the last of the seaway's stagnant water was pushed out, draining south into the Gulf of Mexico for the final time. The basin that had once teemed with the most terrifying life on Earth became a vast, muddy floodplain, then a series of shallow lakes and swamps, and finally, dry land. The sun eventually returned to a sky cleared of soot, shining down on a world scrubbed clean of its former masters. The age of reptiles was over. The age of mammals was about to begin. Today, you stand on that same ground. But the world is unrecognizable. The oppressive, tropical humidity is gone, replaced by the dry, sweeping winds of the Great Plains. The murky water has been replaced by an endless ocean of grass, the chalky badlands of Kansas, and the rolling hills of the Dakotas. The Western Interior Seaway is a ghost, a geological memory, buried under a mile of younger rock and soil. But the monsters are still here. They did not vanish completely. They are sleeping in the stone, their colossal bodies held in perfect, silent suspension in the layers of shale and chalk that were once the soft mud of the seafloor. And now, the patient forces of erosion, wind and rain, and the slow work of rivers are gently waking them from their 66-million-year slumber. On a sun-scorched embankment in rural Kansas, the curve of a massive vertebra belonging to a Tylosaurus begins to emerge from the crumbling rock. In the Badlands of South Dakota, a summer thunderstorm washes away a layer of soft shale to reveal the dagger-like tooth of a Mosasaurus. The discovery of these remains in the 19th century helped fuel America's westward expansion, with paleontological expeditions often accompanying military surveys into new territories. These bones are the final testament, the last irrefutable evidence of the world you have just witnessed. You can imagine the paleontologist who finds that tooth. They will hold it in their hand, a piece of the ancient violence that once defined this place. They will run their thumb over its sharp, cutting edge and feel a faint echo of the terror it once inspired. Scholars still argue whether the last of the non-avian dinosaurs on land survived for a few thousand years after the impact, a so-called dead clade walking. But for the great marine reptiles of the seaway, the end was swift and absolute. Their world was erased in an instant. The fear and the awe that these creatures inspire in us now is a testament to a real lost world. A time when the heart of a continent was a shallow, warm sea, an inland ocean that became the perfect crucible for creating the worst nightmares the planet has ever known. And so, the story of Hell's Aquarium is not just a tale of monsters, but a story of the Earth's incredible power to create and to destroy. It's a reminder that the quiet, stable landscapes of our modern world are just a thin veneer, a fleeting moment of calm stretched over a deep and violent history. The bones sleeping beneath the prairie grass are proof that the world can and will change in ways we can scarcely imagine. The water of that ancient sea has long since receded, and the great beasts that swam within it are now only memories written in stone, silent giants sleeping peacefully in the heart of the land. The oppressive heat of the Cretaceous has faded, replaced by the cool evening air, and the great hungry shadows that once patrolled the depths have dissolved back into the abyss of time, their reign of terror finally and truly over. The world is quiet now, the waters are calm, and the ghosts of that terrible, beautiful ocean can finally be laid to rest as you, too, drift slowly away from that forgotten shore. The story is over, the last echo of that ancient roar has faded, and all that is left is the gentle, rhythmic sound of your own breathing, a quiet tide in a peaceful, modern sea.